Hey there, and welcome back to my channel where I talk all things managing social anxiety while at the Disney World theme parks. I am currently in the midst of a series that I'm doing where I share with you the top 10 tips that I have for you for navigating the parks and dealing with your social anxiety. Right now, we are on tip number 6. And so this video is going to be all about Lightning Lane and why I recommend Lightning Lane for people like me who want to visit the parks, want to have a great time in the parks, however, want to lessen or prepare for the social anxiety that they might experience. So I'm in the parks all the time. I live about 10 minutes away from the park entrance. And so I have purchased Lightning Lane on many occasions. I've used Lightning Lane in all 4 of the theme parks. If you don't know what Lightning Lane is, I'll go ahead and spend a good chunk of the time talking about Lightning Lane, what your options are, and then I'll spend the last part of the video talking about why I think it's a good option for those of us with social anxiety. So just a little bit of history. Prior to Lightning Lane, Disney used to use a service that they called FastPass. And what FastPass was it was a free way for park goers to pretty much reserve their times to ride an attraction in advance. So let's say that you went to Magic Kingdom. If you went to Magic Kingdom, you were able to go up to a machine in the parks, choose what times, choose what attractions you wanted to reserve ride times for, and you were able to choose 3 on a particular day. And what that meant was when your time came, you would go to that attraction, you would give a paper ticket to the ride attendant, and there was a separate lane or line that you would be in as opposed to being in the regular queue. And this cut down on your wait time tremendously. So for instance, if Pirates of the Caribbean had a 40-minute wait time, with FastPass, you were able to get on that attraction after maybe 5-10 minutes max. So with COVID, though, Disney did get rid of the FastPass program, and they introduced something in its place. And what they replaced FastPasses with is Lightning Lane. So Lightning Lane pretty much has the same concept. You can reserve your ride times in advance. You can choose what ride you want to ride and pick from available times. And then when your time comes, you go up to the attraction, you scan your Magic Band or your park ticket, and you enter into a Lightning Lane queue, which again is hopefully significantly shorter as far as the wait time than the standby queue. Now, there are currently 3 different options for Lightning Lane. Option number 1 is the individual Lightning Lane. This is available only at select attractions. So let me see if I can remember off the top of my head. At Magic Kingdom, individual Lightning Lane is for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. At Epcot, individual Lightning Lane is for the Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind attraction. If you go over to Hollywood Studios, you can find the individual Lightning Lane option for Rise of the Resistance. And what am I forgetting? Animal Kingdom. Pandora Flight of Passage is the option for individual Lightning Lane there. And so these are the most popular rides typically with the longest standby wait times. The thing about the individual Lightning Lanes is you're literally only purchasing a Lightning Lane for that individual ride. So once you, let's say, purchase a Lightning Lane for Flight of Passage, you can ride that ride one time at the allotted return time, and that's it. So that's option number 1. And then option number 2 is to do what they call multi-pass. So with the multi-pass option, you are purchasing the ability to make up to 3 Lightning Lanes at one time at an individual theme park. So pretty much any attraction that is not in that individual lightning lane category is going to be covered in multi-pass. Now, there are some caveats to that. Not every single ride or attraction or show at Disney World is going to have a lightning lane. These typically, again, are reserved for more popular attractions that tend to have a longer queue. So I'm trying to think, let's say in Animal Kingdom, for instance, you won't find a lightning lane for the train ride. I forget what the name of the actual train is, but the train ride over to Rafiki's Planet Watch. There's no lightning lane for that. But there are lightning lanes for, let's say, the Safari and the Lion King show over at Magic Kingdom. So lightning lanes do apply not only to attractions, but also to select shows. But again, you're able to reserve up to 3 lightning lanes in advance. And then what you would do is once you use one of those lightning lanes, meaning you've scanned your Magic Band or your ticket in order to enter into that standby queue, you are then allowed to create another lightning lane for another ride. So you could feasibly or conceivably do that throughout the day in order to try to hit up as many rides as possible. And so that is the multi-pass lightning lane. The last option that you have, which is Disney's newest option, is what they call Premier Pass. And Premier Pass gives you the ability, you're going to select a park, and it gives you the ability to ride every single ride that has a lightning lane one time. You don't need to reserve a time like you do for individual or multi-pass. You literally just show up to the lightning lane queue, scan your Magic Band or your ticket, and you can enter into that queue. And again, you can do that for one time for each individual ride where there is a lightning lane or where there is a lightning lane queue. So that's a little bit about lightning lane. The other thing that I wanted to share is you probably can, surmise that because this is a paid option, the prices are not going to be necessarily the cheapest. And so there are different prices for all 3 options. It can get a little confusing, but individual lightning lanes, each individual ride that I mentioned is going to have a different price. So if you, let's say, want to do a Flight of Passage over at Animal Kingdom, and you also want to do Cosmic Rewind, the Guardians of the Galaxy ride over at Epcot, those 2 rides can have 2 different prices. And the thing about it as well is Disney uses a dynamic ticketing system. So not only are the rides or the prices going to differ by attraction, but they're also going to differ by park and by day. So if I were to look at the price for Lightning Lane for Flight of Passage today, and today is a Sunday, if I look at, I'm going to get one price. If I look at that same ride at the same time for tomorrow, I could get a completely different price. And tomorrow just happens to be Memorial Day, so I would assume that the prices are going to be a little bit higher on holidays. So that's something to keep in mind. The same thing applies for the multi-pass option. Multi-pass, you're going to pay one price for each day for each park. So Magic Kingdom, for instance, tends to be a little bit more expensive than the other parks, whereas Animal Kingdom, because they have the least amount of attractions, is going to be the least expensive option. So I've seen Animal Kingdom, I've seen multi-pass for Animal Kingdom range for anywhere from about $15 per person to maybe $19 or $20 per person. Whereas at at Magic Kingdom, you can pay anywhere from, the high 20s to the high 30s. I've seen Lightning Lane multi-pass go for like $39 per person for 1 day of Lightning Lane in Magic Kingdom. So that's something to keep in mind. Same thing with the Premier Pass. The price for that is going to be based on the park that you want to go to, and also the day or the time of year that you are going. And right now, Premier Pass has ranged anywhere from like 179 to 199 for like an Animal Kingdom, up to 429 for Magic Kingdom. Now, again, for that price, you are able to ride every attraction that has a Lightning Lane queue one time without having to make that reservation. And so that becomes important, because one thing that you might not know is that Lightning Lane, they sell out, and sometimes they do so pretty quickly. And I won't talk too much about that in this video, but for instance, if I were to look in the app right now, I would probably, I can already guess that I'm not going to be able to find a Lightning Lane for some of the more popular rides, like let's say Slinky Dog Dash over at Hollywood Studios. The Lightning Lane for that particular ride tends to go pretty quickly, and Slinky Dog Dash is covered under the multi-pass option, not the individual option. So that one goes very quickly. Over at Magic Kingdom, Peter Pan goes very quickly. At Animal Kingdom, the Safari, nothing really tends to sell out at Animal Kingdom, but if it were to sell out, it would more than likely be the Safari, or what is the name of the ride? Navi River Journey over in Pandora. At Epcot, Ratatouille and Frozen tend to sell out pretty quickly. And again, those are all covered under the multi-pass option, so there is no individual pass for that. And I say all of that to say, you can buy the multi-pass option for Lightning Lane and still not be able to ride all of the rides that multi-pass covers. And so then you may be asking, well, what would be the purpose of purchasing a Lightning Lane? This is an extra ticket. This is per person, not per party. And so those costs can rack up or add up pretty quickly. Why would you want to do that? Well, for those of us specifically who struggle with with social anxiety, one of the things that may make you the most uncomfortable are the crowds, right? And sometimes the biggest crowds can be found in the queues for some of the most popular rides. So if you're going to be standing in a line where the queue is, let's say, 50 minutes, that's 50 minutes of you basically shoulder to shoulder with tons of other people that you don't know. So the ride that comes to mind for me when I think about how helpful Lightning Lane can be is Soarin' over in Epcot. It is a ride that I tend to not ride too often because my daughter doesn't like it that much. However, my mom loves to ride Soarin'. So every time she's in town, we have to ride that ride. But my mom also is not going to buy Lightning Lane. So we do stand in the standby queue. And so when we were there, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, in line for Soarin', the line, it said the queue was only 25 minutes long. However, I knew going into it that it was going to be a lot longer than that. And if you've been in the Soarin' queue before, it starts off pretty wide. So there can be people like in front of you, behind you, trying to slip in through the side. And so that can be a place where you're just too close for comfort. But then also the second part of the queue has you in a much more narrow space. And there is not really any breathing room in a situation like that. So you're going to have, like I said, people in front of you, behind you, basically breathing down your neck for the entire time that you are in those queues. Something to be aware of, and it's one reason why I, personally have no problem spending money on Lightning Lane. The other thing that I think is important to note when you are purchasing Lightning Lane for those of us with social anxiety is it really does help you plan your day a lot better and to be more efficient with your use of time. So one of the things that I talked about in a previous video, one of my other tips was about mobile ordering, right? And my suggestion, not only to mobile order, but to choose to eat at times where other people are not yet eating, where other people are riding rides or watching parades or shows. Those are the times that those of us with social anxiety probably should be eating because, the restaurants are going to be a lot crowded. Well, or a lot less crowded, In line with that is this idea of Lightning Lane. So for me, I would gladly pay $22 to ride Rise of the Resistance Lightning Lane than to have to spend 70 minutes standing in a standby queue. And again, this is because not only do I not have to stand in a 70-minute line, but I get to plan out my day a little better. So if I do it early enough, say for that Rise of the Resistance Lightning Lane, I can book that at a time that works for me and my schedule. So maybe it is riding that at 9 a.m. and then, or 10 a.m. and then after that, going and eating an early lunch at one of the restaurants in the parks. So it just helps you to plan your day better. It helps by not having to stand in line as long as the standby queue. And then you're also really just not going to be shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of other people that you don't know, don't really feel comfortable being around for such an extended period of time. So those are my thoughts on Lightning Lane. Again, some people love Lightning Lane. Some people think it's a waste of money. My perspective on it is it does have value as long as you know how to use it efficiently for your purposes. There is going to be some research that you'll need to do on how to utilize Lightning Lane for the best value and to really make the most of it. If you have any questions, definitely go ahead and ask in the comment section below, and I will try my best to answer them because again, I have used Lightning Lane at all 4 parks, both the individual Lightning Lane and the multi-park Lightning Lane or multi-pass Lightning Lane versions of it. I have not used Premier Pass because I live too close to the parks to feel the need to spend that amount of money to ride rides that I've already been on multiple times. Oh, and one thing that I forgot to ask that is definitely a benefit of Lightning Lane is if you have a park hopper ticket and you buy the multi-pass Lightning Lane, you can use your Lightning Lane across the parks. So I have been in Epcot, and while I was in Epcot, using my Lightning Lanes, after I finished riding the attractions that I wanted to ride, I went ahead and booked Lightning Lanes for Magic Kingdom. Took the monorail right over and started hopping on attractions there. So you definitely can, if you have a park hopper ticket, use your multi-pass Lightning Lane across parks on the same day. All right, so that's all that I have for this video. My next video is going to cover my 7th tip for managing your social anxiety at the Walt Disney World theme parks. So hopefully I will see you over there. Bye.